Okay, so I think this is working. We will find out in a minute. This is me trying it again, and this is going to be an obligatory live stream because I haven't uploaded anything in absolutely forever. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go through all kinds of stuff that I've been meaning to put in videos for the last few weeks. But basically, what happened is so I can explain, and this might crash for the record. That I think this will get preserved. So if this ends up being like a 3 minute long video and the live stream does not work, it's not my fault. The whole reason I don't do live streams is because, well, one, I can't edit if I say something stupid, and I say a lot of stupid things. But two, for some reason my computer likes to crash if I'm very like USB intensive for some reason, something with my USB driver and my internet's USB and my camera's USB and all this stuff so if I try to stream, apparently there is a risk that my computer will just crash. So that might happen here. I'm just going to put that out there. That might happen. And I don't even know if people can hear me, to be honest. So hopefully that works. Let me know if it's just a blank screen. But we'll find out. If it doesn't work, I can always just delete it later. And I believe this is actually recording personally on my computer as well, so I can always upload it later. But anyways, so I was gone for a week. I was gone away from my computer, and I was unable to upload things. So what I did was I recorded a bunch of I read a bunch of books. I recorded a bunch of book reviews beforehand, and I was gone for like 7 days, and I recorded like 6 book reviews for those 7 days. So I'm like, okay, good. For the first time at this point, I will be able to upload a considerable amount. This is going to be awesome, and I will actually be able to. For some reason, my connection is showing iffy. So for all I know, this is terrible. But if it is, let me know. I think I can see the chat here. But yeah, basically, I was gone for a week. I had all my videos uploaded, and you can see that if you look at my channel, like six or seven videos of book reviews and that. And then when I came back, I got sick. Like I didn't feel terrible. Like I still went to work and everything. I was fine in that sense, but it killed my voice. So I couldn't exactly upload if I was just coughing and just had a very hoarse voice, and it was all around just going to be terrible. So I was like, okay, I can't record anything if I'm sick, and I'm just not going to do it. I'll get better in a week, and I'll just have to like take a week off. Well, I got better after about a week and a half, and then I just never really got back into it. So that is completely my fault, and I completely apologize for that. But yeah, that's why there's been nothing, because I was sick, and then I got lazy. So that's what happened there. But I have a bunch of things here. I actually have, if you can see this here, I have a notepad full of things to talk about here on my other monitor. But yeah, that was the first thing. Just sorry I'm lazy. I'm back to recording normal things. I'm getting back in the swing of things, and I'm actually quite amazed. Last time I tried to do a live stream, I think I made it 5 minutes, and right now I'm showing 4 minutes. So we'll again see what happens. Again, for all I know, it's saying dropped frames 7%. So as far as I know, my internet's not actually doing anything. So besides live streaming. So I'm not entirely sure why it's having such an issue, because normally it streams pretty well. I'm not great, but decently. So right now my little light here on my streaming thing is going back and forth between green and occasionally yellow and occasionally red. But it shouldn't be that terrible. Showing again, drop frame 7%. So anyway, on to actual things. So the second Dem debate, it for one, CNN got rid of them after they happened, after the Dem debates. It's so hard to find those. And of course, I like to archive everything, so as soon as I find something, give me a day or so, and I download it, and I keep a personal copy. So I was searching for these Dem debates, because I didn't watch them. I worked at the time. For the CNN Dem debates, I was searching for those for like 3 days, until finally a page, or a YouTube channel called Mox News. It's like www Mox News, parody of Fox News, obviously. Com was the video. www Mox News com, and I'm just saying that to give them credit, I guess. They had a copy of the video of the live stream, so I quickly downloaded it off their channel, and a day later, CNN like copyright strike them for having that up there, so it's gone now. And freaking, like, I don't know why you would want to block that. For me, if you're gonna do a debate and you're gonna, like, once the debate is gone, if people miss it, they're gonna want to watch it, right? So why not put it up on YouTube? But for some reason, I think it was available on their website. I didn't try. I wanted a personal copy, and I have one, so I'm happy. But I went through and watched those, and it's there's a reason I hate politics, and that might sound dumb coming from someone like me who does a political YouTube channel. But I mean, I personally despise politics. I like learning about history. I like learning about philosophy, and I like learning about all of these great ideas and reading great treatises and books on political systems. I love looking into and learning about this stuff and talking to people about it. What I hate is the drama and the politician stuff, and like I hate how politics. See, I even still had a bit of a cough. But politics for me is just, it's people that don't know anything complaining and yelling at each other, and I don't like that stuff. I like listening to the live streams where they discuss economics, not the ones where they discuss the news of the day kind of thing. That's personally what I try to make the channel a bit more like about actual things and not just the news of the day, even though it is quite often about the news of the day. But yeah, so anyways, to continue, the second NEM debates, there was no substance. It is absolutely terrible. For one, the only good thing you could say out of that whole thing was Marianne Williamson, who I'm not like unironically supporting for president, but the memes, like she is a good meme, is what she is. And I think she even said that, actually. Someone asked her about the debates, like, how do you think debates went? And her response was, I don't know, let me see the memes. Like, we'll have to wait till the memes come out, and then I can tell you. So that's hilarious. She's very good meme material. It's someone that I don't want anywhere near the presidency, but she's hilarious in that sense. Hilarious in a good way or a bad way. I'll leave that up for you to decide. But yeah, that's essentially what's happening there. So, second Dem debates, I've covered that. On to, while I was gone, there were two shooters, like back to back. And the crazy thing was, I wasn't really paying attention to the news. I was doing a lot of reading because I was sick, so I didn't really have a reason to pay attention to the news. So, because I wasn't going to do videos, so I just didn't. And I remember I was at work and someone told me, like, did you hear about the shooting in about the shooting? I'm like, yeah, I heard about the El Paso one last night. And they're like, no, the second one. There's a second one in what was it, Dayton now? And it's like, what, that was freaky. Like, and then about 3 days later, I think I followed up on it. And from what it seems, I read the manifesto of the first guy. I didn't really follow up on the second one too closely. The first guy seems to have specifically targeted Hispanics, in the sense of, like, if you read his thing, he seems to see Hispanics and Americans as two separate groups, and his whole goal was to go to the border and shoot people that and shoot the Hispanics, basically. If you I actually put my limited knowledge of Spanish to use, reading some of the Spanish news and the tweets and that, and for what it looks like, yeah, he specifically targeted those people, and his manifesto is quite close to it's a bit less elaborate version of the Christchurch one. The guy's like, yeah, I'm here to take out the invaders. And then, of course, he even specifies at the end, this, like, the media is going to be moronic and make this about Trump and make this about the American right. And it's like, no, that's like, I was like this for a long time. This long predates that, is what he said. So, I'm not going to tell people to go out and read it, but if you haven't yet, it's worth actually reading it for yourself and not listening to what I know that sounds terrible, me telling people to read like terrorist manifestos. So I'm not specifically saying to. I'm just saying don't believe what you see on the news, because they obviously find the best bits and take it out of context. But the second guy, it's all down to whether his political views played a specific role in the actual action. Like, was it politically motivated? And that we don't know, but he seems to be, like, a far leftist. He seems to be someone that was quite sympathetic to Antifa. But whether he actually, like, he didn't, as far as I know, he didn't produce a manifesto. He didn't produce anything that said this was specifically ideological. All we know is that he was pretty far left. He was definitely, like, had links to Antifa. But whether that actually played in a role in his actual actions, in whether it was politically motivated, we have no idea. But I'm gonna honestly just say it probably was. But there was actually a weird thing where there is like a rumor that has some evidence to it, not much, but some evidence that his sister, who he shot, like the Dayton shooter's sister, was one of his victims. That she was supposedly trans, and like there's some evidence to that, but not much at all. Because I follow a few like local Antifa pages just to kind of keep an eye on them and see what's going on, and they were sharing that stuff around, and they were actually sharing stuff that wasn't just tweets. It was actually again some evidence. It's like, okay, if this is true, that's actually kind of that's still awful. It doesn't make it any better, but that's just it's interesting how that works. It's interesting how I don't know, it just makes the thing a bit more confusing. But of course, now people have gone after video games, and there's plenty of good memes about. If you don't follow me on, I have been continuously uploading to my Facebook page while I've been gone for the past 2 weeks. So just memes in that I find online. Every so often, I'll make a meme of my own, but I'm not very creative. So for the most part, it's just been me. I'm just finding other memes and then uploading them. And I don't steal memes. I give credit. So, but I think it's facebook.com/libertynack. But there were plenty of good ones there on like video games. It shows like a SWAT team showing up to this kid's house, and they go to investigate the kid's room, who was like in this meme was a shooter. They break into the room, and there's guns on the wall, and there's like all kinds of like skull images, and like it's just, you can tell like the kid was clearly messed up from the weaponry and everything on the wall. And then and then they go right past, in the meme, they go right past that, and they go right to his laptop where he's got Minecraft up and running. And the joke is obviously like, oh, we found the culprit. It's not any of this other stuff. It's he was playing Minecraft. And of course Babylon Bee, which is a great satire site, babylonbee.com. They had an article of how video games have ruined our generation, because kids are just beginning to randomly construct small fortresses. Obviously reference to Fortnite. But it's stuff like that the people going out and saying, oh, it's violent video games. It's like, okay, you shouldn't, your 10-year-old probably shouldn't be playing like 17 plus games. I don't know if I would let my future children at the age of 10 play these like 17 plus games with ratings like that. But at the same time, like, it's, the evidence is practically none. As far as I know, there's one or two studies that show, hey, maybe. But the biggest issue is just cause and effect. Like, you can find a correlation that, sure, if someone's a deeply messed up person, they might play violent video games, because loads of people play violent video games. But at the same time, it's like, where is the actual causation? And that has not been established at all. Like, there's not been any established cause of, hey, if you play violent video games, you are more likely to act that out in public. There doesn't, like, again, there's a correlation, but there's no actual evidence of any kind of causation there, which is the issue. Because again, it's like, have I played? I mean, I've played a little bit of Grand Theft Auto, and I'm trying to obey the traffic laws there. Like that. As far as I know, that hasn't influenced me to go out and steal a car or drive recklessly. I've got the progressive snapshot thing in my car right now, so I have to drive perfectly or it will beep at me, and that gets reported, and that makes the price of my insurance go up. So for me, it's the exact opposite. But yeah, on to actual things. The reason I called this a book stream and not just a catch-up stream is because I've read a lot of books in these past 2 weeks. A lot of books. Like, I've been pretty much ignoring a lot of the news and stuff, and I haven't been checking social media as much. And I just got to comment, I'm amazed. I have no idea how well this stream is going forth, but I just want to say I'm absolutely amazed that I haven't crashed yet. But I haven't been following the news much at all. I've just been reading loads of books, and I've had people recommend me books, and I've been reading through those, and a lot of them are more fictional, so it's not stuff that it's stuff that I might do a review of, but for the most part, it's just, there's not, it's not the kind of book I typically review, so I might not. So I'm going to briefly go through them here. I actually read the most recent issue of the Independent Review, which is I don't even, like, they claim to be independent, and they're pretty centrist in terms of, it's like classical liberal, American conservative, libertarian, that kind, like more center-left type group like that. It is a nice conglomeration of all of that, even though they all share certain ideological links. It is kind of a combination of all of them, and they do put out good stuff. I've subscribed to their journal for probably 4 years now, and every so often I'll read a few of them, but just this past week I actually read cover to cover the one on social justice, and it was actually very constructive to kind of look back and take a less political, in the sense of, like, get rid of all the political drama and that stuff. It was good to see a good just kind of professional overview from a variety of different perspectives. Again, all not entirely across the political spectrum, but again, like classical liberal, libertarian, American conservative style, that view. A bunch of different approaches, and specifically they addressed Hayek, and specifically why Hayek's critique of social justice failed. And that seems to be something I've heard quite a lot, that Hayek, I forget what it's called. I can't remember what it's called right now, but he wrote a book, or he wrote quite a long essay critiquing social justice, and it's annoying that I can't remember it right now. But overall, it's considered to be not that good in that he hits on a lot of good points, but he's looking at it from the wrong perspective. Thomas Sowell was criticized his analysis of it, and a lot of people in that review criticized it because, like, he's harping on good points, but he's always doing it from his own viewpoint rather than, like, explaining why they are specifically wrong. So, in the sense of, if you can do a conservative analysis of why social justice is wrong, you can do a libertarian analysis of it, but it's they point out that he's failed and that he didn't put himself in their own mindset when he was critiquing it. So that seems to be a summary. Like, that's what seems to be what all the critiques have in common of Hayek's critique of social justice. But no, it's good. I actually quite highly recommend this last issue. I know it's a lot of boring essays. It's very academic, but it was decent. I thought it was quite. I might actually do a review on that because that's still political and related to my channel. But next, I read Hitchhiker's Guide. That's been on my list for about probably 3 years. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I read the complete edition, which is all 5 books together. And actually, apparently, there's like a officially canon 6th book, which wasn't by Douglas Adams. But if you haven't read that, do it. Hitchhiker's Guide is very good, and it's actually interesting how the way it is written. It's actually not that good of a story, but it's also a great book, if that makes sense to go into. Because what I've noticed is Douglas, it's a very British comedy style. It's along like Monty Python. He wrote a few Doctor Who stories. It's that kind of British comedy, like Fry and Laurie type comedy, Blackadder type comedy, that type of British humor. So if you enjoy that, you will enjoy this book, or rather, series of books. I read the whole thing in about a week. It was like 900 pages, so that tells you how much I enjoyed it. But it's very it's actually by definition, I guess, a bad story because I don't really feel for the characters much, and there's lots of what's it called, Deus Ex Machina, I think. The story itself isn't that well put together, but it's almost like that's not the point. It doesn't matter at all. It's almost like if he told a good story, that would ruin who Douglas Adams is. The point is not the good story. The story is just like a means to an end. The writing itself and the comedy style of the writing itself is actually what's so good about it. The fact that the fact that the writing itself, the story is just, again, a vessel to give him something to write about. But it's the humor of which he writes that no matter what happens to the story, I could not care less. But I wasn't reading to find out what happens. I was reading just because I enjoyed the writing itself. That I enjoy the jokes. Like when you're listening to, or when you're watching like stand-up comedy, there's no story there. It's all jokes. You're there for the moment. And it's kind of like that, where the book isn't about the story. It's about the way he tells us jokes and the way he writes, that kind of thing. So in a sense of, like, he randomly just throws in, okay, well, this happened, or he just retcons a lot of the past, and he's allowed to do that because that's not what matters. with him, what matters is the jokes within, or the style of which he tells the story, and rather than the actual story itself. So there was one section where there was one, I think it was the last book. Maybe it was either the 4th or 5th book, where one of those chapters is quite literally just it's just completely out of nowhere. It's the pilot of a plane boarding to Los Angeles saying, like, hey, if you're not going on board to Los Angeles, get off this plane. Like, you're not if you're not going to Los Angeles, you shouldn't be on this plane. That's the entire chapter. It's like a paragraph. And the story has nothing to do with Los Angeles or a plane or anything. Like, he just threw that in there just cuz. Like, that's it. It's that kind of writing. He just kind of threw it in there. And I think it's between books 3 and 4, or maybe it's between 4 and 5. I think it's between 3 and 4, where there's there's a lot of just it doesn't pick up where it leaves off. There's a lot of things that just don't connect. A lot of retconning of the story. Just, it doesn't really match much. And he even addresses it in the book. He's saying some people might criticize, like, how did we get from this book to this book? Like, what happened from then to then? Why did this story end and this story suddenly picks up here? Why is it that the Earth hasn't exploded? Because the entire 4th book takes place on Earth, and the first book, the whole topic, spoilers, the whole topic of the first book is that the Earth explodes. Like right off the bat, right within the first chapter. Or at least I think it was the first or second chapter. But he addresses that, and he's like, well, you might be wondering, like, why is it that the Earth's still here? Why is it that this doesn't really connect with the past story? And his answer is essentially, well, that was a different book, and that book ended, and this is a new book. That's his entire reasoning for as to why the stories are different. That was a different book. This is this book here. It's a different story, so it's it's that kind of stuff. But it's really good. I highly recommend it. What did I read next? I read Hitchhiker's Guide. I read a French book, or rather, like a book that takes place during the French Revolution. It's kind of a romance-ish. It's called Scaramouche. I think it's by Raphael Safatini, I think his name. I probably butchered that. But again, these are all things that a friend has recommended. And I just started going through them one by one. This is not a book that I would normally read. This is not a book that, like, if the person had not recommended it to me, I would have just passed it in the store and never even considered it. It's not my favorite book. It's not the best book I ever read. And for one, it's hard for me to read this kind of book because it's all the characters are French. It takes place in France. So I had to keep stopping and pull myself out of the story to take a moment to learn how to pronounce the French words or pronounce the French names. So I actually had to consult an audiobook. Luckily, I think there was a public domain audiobook on LibriVox. So I listened to one chapter, one of the earlier chapters, just as an audiobook, just so I could understand the pronunciations of the actual book, of the names. So it's stuff like that where it wasn't that, it's not my. Okay, dang it. I can't figure out what's going on here. Why is it that I keep disconnecting? My computer is not doing anything right now. My computer is not, it's not struggling. I look at this and not much is really happening. Maybe if I close some tabs here or there. Why is my internet not working? I mean, it's working, but why is it that it stops? I just lost the stream there for a few minutes, and it's like I'm looking my network 2% right now. Nothing is happening here. Yeah, now and it seems to be back now. So, anyways, to continue, I know I vanished there for a bit, but to continue, I would say like this Scaramouche book is probably pretty good in that I thought it was decent, and it's not my kind of book. So I think that means it must be pretty good, because again, it's not my kind of book that I would normally read. And by the end, I was like, okay, that was a decent story. That was actually pretty good. And the French don't interest me, to be perfectly honest. French stories, I just don't, they just don't really hold my interest. And in that sense, it's like nothing against the French. It's just of all the different, the different nations out there and the histories of all these different civilizations, the French is just, France is the one that interests me the least. If I would go to France, it would be to see the Notre Dame Cathedral, maybe the Bastille, and that's about it. I don't have any interest in Versailles, or I think it's pronounced the Louvre, or any of those things. It's whereas like if I were to go to Italy, for example, there's so much. There's like if you've ever seen the Florentine Cathedral, like look that up. That is the most beautiful building I would go just to see that. And so by that comparison, yeah, the French just don't interest me that much. So a book that takes place during the French Revolution, is if it can hold my interest, which it did. I guess that means it's a pretty good book. Anyways, H.P. Lovecraft. So, I was recommended H.P. Lovecraft, not any specific story, but rather just anything by Lovecraft. So I took that to mean everything by Lovecraft. So I bought I researched what I could find to be the most comprehensive like collection of his works. Because I guess there's a bunch, and some of them had typos, and some of them, none of them, I guess, are completely complete. It's just some are slightly more complete than others, and I got one which was like a 6-volume set. I think it was for like $30, which is a bit pricey, but then again, it's 6 books, so that's not bad. And I'm working my way through them now. I've read about probably half of everything he's written, and to be perfectly honest, I hate to say this, I don't think he's that good of a writer. I think I actually say the opposite about him compared to Hitchhiker's Guide. That Hitchhiker's Guide, it was about the writing. It wasn't about the story. It was about, like, the writing itself was great. The story was okay, but that didn't matter because it wasn't about the story. It was about the writing. Lovecraft, I'm reading it for the lore because the lore has influenced so much. Like, there's so much that, no doubt, you've watched numerous things that have been influenced by Lovecraft. but the writing itself is not that good. I'm interested in the stories, but the writing is, I can't get into it. Like, I'll read a short story and I'll realize that either nothing happened or I just couldn't pay attention enough while reading to actually notice what happened. I'm sorry, I hate to put the guy down, but I read the books. I'm reading through his stuff. I'm reading through everything, so it's not like I've just read a one or two and put it aside. I'm read over half of everything he's ever written, and it's okay. The problem is, I think he cheats in some ways, where he'll see, his character will see something scary, and the character will say, this thing is so scary that I can't even describe it. It's like, isn't that kind of cheating? To just, like, you're a writer and your character saying, I can't even describe it, so I'm not going to try. That seems like cheating. And a lot of the stories are a bit repetitive. I think it might be the fact that I've read so much of his in such a short time that might ruin it for me. That might have partially ruined it. Because it's like, I'll watch it, I'll read it. And it's like, this short story is about a guy that is wandering and he finds a scary building and he walks through the scary building and he describes how scary the building is, and then he gets scared and then he runs away, and that's the whole story. That's the synopsis of a lot, not all of them or even most of them, but a significant amount of his stories are, yes, man tells a story about something scary he saw once. It involves going to a place, finding this scary place, getting scared, and then running away. And that's the entire story. There was of the few ones, what did I read? The Shadow Out of Time, I think it's called, the one with the Me-Go, and it's written by, or from the perspective of a guy that's receiving letters from this dude who is like, yeah, there's these monsters here, and I'm trying to study them and understand them, and they're really scary, and they're after me. And then the guy's suddenly like, oh, well, actually, I met them, and they're really not that bad. You should come see them. And the guy goes and sees them, and he's like, yeah, something's not right here, and he escapes. That's the whole story. That one was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think it's called The Shadow Out of Time. The names might be a bit mixed up. I'm pretty sure it's The Shadow Out of Time. So I would recommend that one. My favorite is probably I think it's called The Thing on the Doorstep. That one is pretty good. About a dude whose friend, his wife is nuts. His wife is taking over his body, or taking over his soul, really, and or displacing his soul to take over his body, and it's all about him trying to fight and get it back, and that's interesting. The ending there was quite good. That one I actually like. It was significant in that I noticed that I actually paid attention and was quite interested compared to his other stories. But yeah, not to put him down, because his lore is really good. It's really fascinating to learn about the lore. But I'm kind of reading it like I'm reading a textbook or a biography. Like, I'm not reading it for the story. I'm reading it just to understand the lore. So, but otherwise, yeah, it's incredible the amount of things that he has come up with. Like, of course, everyone knows about the Necronomicon. That was him. Cthulhu. That was him. If you've ever played Skyrim, I know loads of people played Skyrim. Hermaeus Mora and that whole thing, it was heavily influenced by I think it's pronounced like Yog Sothoth or something. His pronunciations are weird and very difficult. But anyway, that's it for Lovecraft. I've read about half his stuff, and actually, when I finish this stream, I'll probably finish. I'm about halfway through The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, which is his only like novel-size story. But it's quite good. Not the best. The lore is good. The story not so much. The Anansi Boys, which is by Neil Gaiman. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I've only read one of his books in the past. In high school, we had to read the Graveyard Book. I thought it was good. That same friend recommended me Anansi Boys. That one is quite good. I was kind of blown away. I didn't know what it was going to be about because I'm not that smart, and so I didn't know who Anansi was before I read the story. Maybe look up Anansi if you don't know who that is. It's a god. It's an African god, I believe, represented by a spider, and is in a lot of like fable mythology as a trickster god. So Anansi Boys is quite good. It's about the sons plural, possibly, depending on how you view it, of the trickster god. And that was actually quite a good book. Like, Neil Gaiman is certainly someone who I don't read enough of, and he's someone that we will probably be reading in one or two centuries from now, just like we're still paying attention to like Tolkien and that. He's a writer that I think his stories will no doubt be part of history. What else did I read? Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. That's one that just like, what is it, 1984, Animal Farm, Catch 22, Fahrenheit 451, those kind of books, like that you've always heard of, that are really popular and just everyone's heard of, but not too many people have actually read. Slaughterhouse-Five, I've heard of for a while. I finally got around to reading it, and it was quite good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was surprised. Like, I was amazed at how good that was. That's something that I read it in a whole day, and I had work that day, I had a class that day, and still I read the book in a day. So, for one, it's a bit short, so that has to do with it. But it was also, like, it was that good. And actually, if you're someone that, if you read a book which isn't that best to do with a lot of books, where you read a few paragraphs, then you do what you're doing, then you read a few like you find a few moments here and there, like a 2-minute period throughout the day to find or to read your book. That's actually like how I would honestly recommend reading this book, because that's how it's written. It's like just it was so good. It was so good because it's very it's to drive a point home. It's about free will and determinism, and the book is written from a like determinist view to give you an account of it, to show you to make its point. So the book is written in the sense of, from the determinist view, it's written as they tell you the story and then they kind of jump around. Like they take a story and they shuffle it repeatedly until it's a series of like a minute-long segments, or like a few paragraphs each, where it's different chunks throughout the story. And that's how it's written, where you pretty much know the entire story from the beginning, but you're reading the different segments of it as you go through, like not in a linear way, but in a very shuffled way. And that's driving home the almost like futility or like depressing aspect of a determinist view rather than a free will. The book is meant to be pro free will and anti-determinism, but it's written in a way that, because you know the ending, because you already know exactly what happens, as you're reading the book, it's not about like, ooh, what happens next? It's about, oh, you know what happened. You're just going through the motions. And you would think that maybe that doesn't make the book so good, but I think it does quite the opposite. It's amazing how you read it, and it just drives that point home of, oh, this is how we're telling the story, from a determinist viewpoint where everything is already fixed, everything is already in motion, and that's how the story is being told. Everything's already happened. You already know what's going to happen, but we're telling the story this way anyway. So it's incredibly, just, I was astounded how, when you first start reading it, you're like, why is it written this way? It's a bit weird, it's jumbled, but it's so perfectly well done. It's so mind-blowingly good. Read it. Out of all these books I'm recommending, this is one. Definitely read it. It is very good. Next, Edith Hamilton's Mythology, which I'm amazed is not a textbook in schools. It's a book just about Greek mythology and Greek and Roman mythology, and they do have a section at the end on like a brief chapter on Norse mythology as well. And so reading through that, like, that was good as well. That was incredibly good. Again, not as good as Fahrenheit 450, or, oh my god, it's not as good as Slaughterhouse-Five, but it was, this was also very good, because it's good to know this stuff. I think that's something that generally, this is a good thing to know, some of the original, like, Greek mythology stuff. So it goes through a lot of the stories, and it tells them, it's not just like a reprint of the stories or a translation, it's him telling the story in a way that's easier to understand. So I know I'm looking at my stream the whole time, and I'm getting error marks saying YouTube is not receiving enough information. My kilobytes per second is going up, and then it goes down. It goes from 3,000, which it is right now, down to, now it's showing 1,700. Now it's up to 3,000 again, and now it's back down to 900. So this might be terrible. This might be god awful, and I apologize in advance. I've apparently dropped 18.5% of frames, which is not good. But maybe I should have recorded this as well. But I don't think it is. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, this is a lazy. I'm just glad it's streaming to begin with, and we haven't crashed. So I'm just gonna say that. But anyway, Edith Hamilton's mythology, Greek mythology. That stuff it's good to know. It's just very fascinating to see how they told their stories, and specifically to see how some of these stories are not quite how you heard them. Like Hercules. Everyone knows who Hercules is. Everyone's probably seen the Disney story, and but Disney left out the fact that Hercules murdered his family because he got mad. Like, they left out that part where Hercules is very he's a hero because he's strong, not because he's smart. Like, he's very ill-tempered, and he got angry at his family once, and like, he had a wife and kids, and he just slaughters them because he's mad. And then after he realized he slaughtered them, he's like, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. And it's like, that's Greek mythology for you. That's the story of Hercules, where it's the characters are very, like, they're heroic not because they're overcoming personal obstacles. They're heroic because they're powerful, I guess, in a sense. Or at least I shouldn't say that. I should say specifically with Hercules, because there is a lot, like, of course, Odysseus in the Iliad and the Odyssey. That is quite good. Everyone knows that one. That was quite good. But it's a lot of different stories. It's I don't know if it's all of them, but it's a lot of them. And it's you can tell as he goes through, he says, okay, well, this story has been told 8 different times. I prefer this storytelling, or I prefer the way it was told this way as compared to this way. I'm actually taking one scene that was in this version and another scene that was in this version. I'm including that in my version of the story. So it is, I like how it's constructed. And actually, the end, oddly enough, Norse mythology. That section I found very fascinating, because he does contrast specifically how, like, if you're from the United States, if you're from the West, more than likely your ancestry will be Norse, whereas your cultural influence will be Greco-Roman. And so he points out it's actually interesting how the Greeks and the Romans, their gods were almighty, all-powerful, perfect, in the sense of all-powerful, but they weren't perfect in terms of moral beings, but they were all-powerful. And so in that sense, they're not heroes. They're just all-powerful. Like, there is no obstacle that they can't just overcome. They can do whatever they want. Whereas Norse mythology, it is very depressing in the sense that it's assumed, it's just granted there's going to be the end times. However, the gods are heroes in the sense that they are fighting to slow that down as best as they possibly can. And that is essentially the point of that, where they're trying to stop Ragnarok. Or rather, I should correct that. They're not trying to stop it. They're trying to push it off for as long as possible. But the gods there they're not immortal. They're not perfect beings. They're flawed. They're very similar to humans. So they can be heroic. The Norse gods are very heroic because they have obstacles to overcome. They are imperfect. So I just found that very fascinating. But they did say the days of the week. Like, I never knew where the days of the week came from. It's like, oh, it turns out if you're English, or if you speak English, your days of the week come from a combination of Norse mythology and the Greeks and Romans. So Tuesday is a, like, overall, over time it was originally pronounced like Tyrs Day, Tyr's Day was the name of the god. But, like, I think his name was Tyr. I'm gonna pronounce it Tyr. Was the god of war. Like, he was the Norse equivalent of Ares. But the idea was you had Tyr's Day. That was Tuesday. That eventually became Tuesday. Just the pronunciation over time changed a bit. That's where Tuesday comes from. Wednesday is Odin's Day. Oddly enough, Odin, the father of Thor. Odin's Day was pronounced Woden's Day. And Woden's Day eventually became Wednesday. It just, over time, that changed the pronunciation. And over time, from going from the Norse, the Germans, to, like, the English people, the Anglo-Saxons, that went from Woden's Day to Wednesday. I find that interesting. And then Thursday is actually Thor's Day, like Thor, god of thunder. That's where it came from. It was originally Thor's Day, and then over time, across cultures, across different languages, that got changed to Thursday. So that's actually interesting. And then Friday, I think, is Freya's Day. Started as Freya's Day, I think, or Freya's Day. Again, I'm pronouncing them how I think they're pronounced, but because I've only read them, I've never heard them pronounced. But Freya's Day became Friday, and that was, I believe, Thor's mother, Odin's wife. I believe that's who that was. That's where that came from. And then for most days, I actually looked at this more in depth, not just from the book. And I know we're completely rambling from the original book review, but reading through, I was doing some research then on what about the other days. And it turns out that, of course, Saturday came from Saturn. For most people, for most civilizations across the world, I guess I can say nowadays, Saturday is pretty much universally named after, like, Saturn. Saturn, I forget what the god was. I mean, the god's name was Saturn, but I forget what he was the god of. And that's where most civilizations, most different languages, they have that influence there. That their word for Saturday has somewhere linked to the name of the god Saturn. So we have Saturday. For the Spanish, it's Sabado, which it doesn't sound that close, but kind of. I mean, and it starts out initially, but apparently there was some influence there. And if you look, I know like the Philippine languages, the French and the Italians, it's a lot similar to how the Spanish pronounce their words. It's all similar to that Latin origin. But then I looked across, and it turns out in just about every, not so much in the East, but for the most part in pretty much everywhere besides like the East Asian civilizations, pretty much everywhere else, Sunday and Monday are just whatever your translation was for Sun's Day and Moon's Day. So Sunday is always named after the sun, and Monday is always named after the moon. So for us, Monday was shortened from Mona's Day or Moni's Day. That word for the moon. If you look in a lot of like, I believe the Roman term or the Latin term for the moon was Luna. So in Spanish it's lunes. I know it. I'm trying to remember the Italian. I used to know the Italian one, but it's something close to that. If you look, it's something similar to lunes. Again, the Philippines, who were influenced by the Spanish, they have it's something like lunes as well. But that's where that comes from. It's whatever Monday is. It's somehow derived from the name for the moon. Like it's somehow translated from Moon Day. And again, same with Sunday. It's somehow translated for us. It's again, if you speak English, it's quite literal Sunday. But for most civilizations, interestingly enough, it is somehow some translation, if not a direct translation, from Sunday. I thought that was interesting. But there's plenty of other books I'm reading. I'm finishing H.P. Lovecraft. I'm reading Crime and Punishment as well. I got to the crime part, not the punishment part, but I got to the crime part. So these books are long. These books that my friend's recommending me. It seems like each new book I read is longer than the previous one, which isn't such a bad thing, but it's just like, dang, I think I'm done, and then it gets longer. Why did I drop again? Dang it. Why does it say I'm dropping again? It says I dropped my connection again. What is going on there? I don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm just amazed. Maybe I should I'll listen back to this when I stop the stream, and if it's god awful, maybe I'll just re-record it and then upload it personally. But this is more of it's more just a mumble to put out some content. Again, I'm looking at my notifications. OBS Studio, disconnected, reconnected, disconnected, reconnected. Jeez, I'm using OBS. Maybe I'll use something different next time. I don't even know what else there is to use for streaming software. But that's what I've always used, and it seems to work out pretty well. But yeah, basically. Hey, it's Davekin in the chat. I just noticed that right now. My notepad was covering up the chat stream. There's Davekin. Hi, Dave. But anyways, to continue. So I bought some Thomas Sowell. I'm nearly done here because my last thing was Thomas Sowell. So I bought some Thomas Sowell books because I don't have enough books. And there's already just piles and piles of books in my house of things I haven't read and I need to. But I bought some Thomas Sowell because it was cheap. Bought 3 books. I bought Intellectuals and Race, Intellectuals and Society, which is huge, and Black Rednecks and White Liberals, which that one's the one that I think, if you know a Thomas Sowell book, it's usually that one, or Basic Economics, one of those two. But so as soon as I finish up with these fiction books that my friend has been recommending me, I will jump to that and I will do reviews of that because I need to read more Thomas. Thomas Sowell he's someone that everyone kind of acknowledges. He's pretty great, but you gotta read. If you haven't read his books yet, do it. His books are so good. His books are you don't, if you feel like, you might think like, yeah, he's a cool dude. I've read some of his articles, but his books are just great. They're fantastic. By far, some of the best books I've ever read. One of my favorite authors, because he writes so perfectly. Like he gets it. He is the one that understands it. He's the one that has everything figured out. And he is the one that he doesn't just say, okay, I've got it figured out. Here's what I've learned. He just goes so far in depth and he gives the research and it's perfect. Like everything he writes about is gold. So do that. I mean, sure, I can only say I've only actually read 3 of his books, which are Civil Rights, Rhetoric, or Reality, which is, again, one that is, I don't hear that much, but is really good. That was the first one I ever read. It's great. It's short. It's like 100 pages. It's great. Do it. Next was the Quest for Cosmic Justice. That one is good as well. And then, what was the third one? Not a conflict. Yeah, A Conflict of Visions was the third one, which is really good. That's his alternative to Left versus Right, the constrained and unconstrained view. I know I've done a review of that book before. I've done a video just kind of going through what he explains, but it's great. So if you haven't read Thomas Sowell, do that. Like, of all the authors to read Thomas Sowell. If you had to pick one, if I had to pick one author to recommend out of anything, it wouldn't be Rothbard. It wouldn't be even though Rothbard would probably be second or third. It is Thomas Sowell. So do that. And that's pretty much all I can think of. That's pretty much everything I can think of with this stream. The number of dropped frames is increasing, the percentage. So I guess I've been going on for 45 minutes. I can probably end it here and listen back and see if this was god awful. This is my first successful stream, in the sense that this is the first stream that hasn't just crashed my computer. And I think it's because I'm not using a camera. Like, the whole reason I don't have my camera up is because I want to be as light on my computer as possible, decrease the number of variables there are to cause it to shut down and reboot. And then I have to go in and figure out how to shut down the stream and all that. It's nonsense. So I think I wanted to hear. I think I've talked about everything I want to. There's so many other things that like I would have normally made a video on, but I haven't done the research in depth. Like Jeffrey Epstein is one of them. Just what's been happening with Jeffrey Epstein. He apparently died while on suicide watch. Well, they took off suicide watch last second, which that's something where pretty much everyone across the political spectrum has all agreed. Yeah, like I doubt he was the one who actually committed suicide. I think someone killed him. And even then, I think it was Molyneux that pointed out, even if, let's say he did commit suicide, okay, the government is so incredibly complicated that it can't keep this guy from killing himself in a jail cell. But anyways, I think that was it. So I'm going to wrap up here. Like the video if you enjoyed it. I think this will be saved afterwards. Again, I'm going to keep this on my channel no matter what, no matter how bad the thing is, no matter how bad the actual quality is, but I will go back and listen. I like to stream. I do kind of like streaming. Just because I kind of like the informality of it in a sense. I like I can see the live chat, and even though my channel is so small that there are not people actively in the chat, I think I can see there's one person there. I have no idea who it is, but I can see that. I do kind of like the long informal streams because I personally like, of all the videos I like listening to, it's usually the live streams. I've been getting into Academic Agent's Unpopular Opinions channel. Or Unpopular Opinions live streams, like those. That's good. If you haven't listened to that, go listen to those. But yeah, so let me know what you think in the comment section of just any stuff. If I said something flat out wrong that you noticed I picked up because this is informal and I can't go back and edit, let me know in the comment section. And if you can figure out why my internet's doing this, it seems to be every time I think it's good, it goes bad. But it's showing good and then it just drops. Like it's showing, hey, good quality right now. Kilobytes per second, 26,000. That's pretty good. Or 2,600. That's pretty good. 26,000 would be really good. 2,600. That's not bad. It shows a green light. And then, like every 10, 15 seconds or so, it looks like it just like, bam, plummets down to like 200 or something. And I can see that YouTube starts to lag and it says, hey, there's a problem here. Like I get alarms. I get a green bar. I get a yellow bar. And there it goes. There it hits 0. There it goes red again. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed. Can you like live streams? I can't remember. I think so. Like the live stream if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. And oh geez, how do I turn off this stream? End stream. Maybe that. Maybe the big red button that says end stream. Let's do that. Yeah, this was fun.